We are live. Good morning, everyone. It's great to be with you. We're going to give everybody just a minute or so to join us. If you have a copy of the 10 scrolls, open them up because we'll be doing some work in the scrolls. Do not please have a paper and a pencil ready so that we can take this on. I'm just opening up the Og site so I can watch this on my phone as well. Okay. So excited to be with you this morning. I'm going to put in my little headset so I can hear this really well. We're just about 2 seconds, 3 seconds away. Thank you for joining us. Thanks for everybody joining already. It's great to have you here. We're going to begin our journey today into the 10 scrolls. Before we jump into the scroll, I just wanted to share with you, and I remember when Betty told me this story for the first time, and she said that Og had been given a contract from Fell Publishing to write the book, The Greatest Salesman in the World, and he'd written the beginning and the end, but in the middle was going to be the 10-time tested principles of success. He wrote the beginning, wrote the end, and didn't know what to put in the middle. And the book deadline was coming, and he needed to get it written. So he took 2 days off as the editor of Success magazine. And she said he was kind of ornery. He stewed and stewed and stewed. And the second night of the second day, he read with his boys and had prayers with them and tucked them in bed. And he went and laid down on his bed for a moment. He's just pondering. And as a writer, I know exactly what happened. The words finally came. The beginning. Today, I begin a new life. Today, I shed my old skin, which had too long suffered the bruises of failure and the wounds of mediocrity. Today, I am born anew, and my birthplace is a vineyard where there's fruit for all. We knew this was happening. Betty said he leapt up from the bed, went into his studio, and pulled out a piece of paper, put it in his IBM Selectric typewriter. He didn't have a computer with cut and paste. This was an IBM Selectric typewriter, and began pounding on the keys. And he would tell you that he spent the rest of the night taking dictation. She brought him Danish and coffee through the night, and at 9 o'clock the next morning, about 13 hours later, he collapsed on the bed and said it's done and slept for a day, which you can imagine. If you have a chance, read the scrolls from beginning to end before you begin the process of studying each one of the scrolls, just to begin to grasp the magnitude of this one-night download. There is so much detail in each one of these scrolls, and the only one that Betty made him do any rewrite on was scroll number 2. We're going to be talking about that tomorrow morning, because it was a little complicated for 1967 when it was written, 68 when it was published. By the way, this is his 50th anniversary this year. So he made some minor adjustments to that scroll. Otherwise, we're looking at what his download, the download that came that night. Well, let's go into scroll number 1. Scroll number 1 is really the foundation for studying the other 9 scrolls. Og makes an argument for why it's so important that we do this and that we do it faithfully. And then he launches us into scroll number 2. So many people begin studying scroll 1 3 times a day for 30 days. That's not the plan. The plan is to read it, understand why you're here, and then jump into scroll number 2. So let's understand why we're here. When Og gets done saying, today I begin a new life, imagine this, every morning, waking up and today I begin a new life. Tomorrow, it's now today, right? I begin a new life. And each day we begin a new life. We shed the old skin, the mistakes, the failures, the disappointments, and we push forward with a new day. He tells us that he's going to, here's a key word, pluck the grapes of wisdom from the wise. He's going to savor the taste of these grapes. And he tells us at the end of this particular scroll that 1,000 grapes were squeezed for these scrolls. So please don't be concerned with the brevity or the shortness of them. 1,000 grapes, and you'll see this as you spend time studying each one of the words. So savor the taste. And then he said, swallow the seed. Actually put it into your being. We don't want to just read it, even memorize it. We want to live it. That's how the scrolls were designed. Now, he tells us that our career is laden. Life is laden with failures. And if we counted them, they'd be piled higher than the pyramids. Yes, but we're not one of them because we have the charts. That's what Og says, the charts that will guide us through the perilous waters. That's what these scrolls are, is to guide us through these perilous waters. I want to read this paragraph to you. It's one of my favorites. Failure no longer will be my payment for struggle. Just as nature made no provision for my body to tolerate pain, neither has it made any provision for my life to suffer failure. Failure, like pain, is alien to my life. This is like an affirmation. In the past, I accepted it as I accepted pain. Now I reject it, and I am prepared for wisdom and principles which will guide me out of the shadows into the sunlight of wealth, position, and happiness far beyond my most extravagant dreams, until even the golden apples in the garden of Hesperides will be my just reward. Remember in mythology, Hercules was given the task of going to the garden that was tended by Ladon, and there was the 100-headed dragon that he needed to cut off all of the heads so that he could get to the golden apples. Just think about when you're reading this, those 100 heads being your habits. Some are like dragons. They want to destroy us, and we want to destroy them so that we can be fully present with good habits. He shares with us that some of us come to this journey, well, I don't have the education, I don't have the experience. And he said, that's okay. You already have more ability than all the animals of the earth. He says experience is overrated because sometimes it takes a lifetime to get it. And by the time we get it, we're dead. He says this, only principles endure. And these I now possess. You got the scrolls in your hands, you now possess them. For the laws that lead me to greatness are contained in the words of these scrolls. And by the way, you go to ogmandino.com and download the 10 scrolls, the audio for them, so you can have those. Then the pivotal statement in scroll number 1. This is pivotal. Good habits are the key to all success. Bad habits are the unlocked door to failure. In other words, anybody can walk into the door and the room of failure. You just walk in, the door's unlocked. No need for a key. But success requires a key. And what's the key? Our habits. We are going to become slaves to good habits. He said, I've surrendered my free will. Just think about that. I wrote a book called The Observer's Chair. We're sitting in the observer's chair, practicing metacognition, this ability to step back and reflect on our own thinking. We're in charge of our thought processes. We're feeling empathetic and compassionate and confident and kind and gentle. Can you feel it? Clear. Then there's that other chair over there, those unhealthy habits of thinking, and I surrender my free will to those years of accumulated habits and the past deeds of my life. Think about some of the things we do when we go over there. Let that chain be wrapped around us, duct tape put over our mouth, and those unhealthy habits speak for us. And he says that the past deeds of my life have already marked out a path which threatens to imprison my future. Oh, is that a great argument for let's take on that 100-headed dragon and let's master these habits, these principles. Then he goes on to say, and I love this, my bad habits must be destroyed and new furrows prepared for good seed. Now, we've learned since then, this was 1967 when he wrote this, that the brain has neuroplasticity. What that means is it's malleable, it can be molded. We can literally change a neural pathway. Think about that, a new furrow. So we come to a moment, we normally would have made that decision, exercised that habit, but instead in a moment of consciousness, we have created a new furrow, we planted new seeds, it started to grow, and we have a new neural pathway. And neuroscientists say that when that new neural pathway has been formed, the brain synaptically prunes off. It prunes off that synapse, prunes it off. The habit's gone, bad habit, been replaced by a new and better habit. This book has so many moments where Og talks about things that no one knew about in 1967. We'll have some fun tomorrow with scroll number 2 and the discussion around mirror neurons. Now, it says, how will this be accomplished? How am I going to do this? How am I going to replace this bad habit with a good habit? He said, that's a principle. You don't just get rid of a bad habit, you replace it with a good habit. He said, I'm going to do that by studying these scrolls in the following manner. Now remember, in 1967, we didn't have CDs and we didn't have computer files. It was just a book. So he said, read scroll number 2, starting with scroll number 2, 3 times a day for 30 days. Then it's in the morning, then at noon, right after your noonday meal, read it again. It takes about 6.5 minutes is all. And just before you go to sleep, you're going to read it again and let it seep into that mysterious mind that never sleeps. Og writes this and said, and what will be accomplished with this habit? Herein lies the hidden secret of all man's accomplishments. That's quite a powerful statement. As I repeat the words daily, they will soon become a part of my active mind, but more importantly, they will also seep into my other mind, the mysterious source that never sleeps, which creates my dreams and acts and often makes me act in ways I do not comprehend. And then the promise, if you'll actually do this, as the words of these scrolls are consumed by my mysterious mind, I will begin to awake each morning. There was a comma there, awake each morning with a vitality I have never known before. My vigor will increase. My enthusiasm, that's my God within, will rise. My desire to meet the world will welcome every fear I once knew at sunrise. And I will be happier than I ever believed it possible in this world of strife and sorrow. What a promise. And catch the last few words. The world is not going to change. It's still filled with life and sorrow. There are still firestorms, but in the midst of that, we are happier than we ever believed possible. What a promise. And he tells us thus, a new habit is born. For when we act, when an act becomes easy through constant repetition, it becomes man's pleasure to perform it often. And when I perform it often, it becomes a habit, and I become its slave. And since it's a good habit, this is my will. Couple more things. Thanks for your time this morning. Glad you're here. Jump into these scrolls with me. As I read and reread these scrolls, never will I allow the brevity of the scroll nor the simplicity of the words to cause me to treat the word and message lightly. There's 100,000 grapes of wisdom squeezed into these words. Today, my old skin has become dust. I will walk tall among men, and they will know me not, for I am a new man with a new life. So, today, make the decision. Today, I begin a new life. Open up scroll number 2 and read it this morning, 6.5 minutes. At noonday, read it again. And tonight, before you go to sleep, read it a third time, but read it aloud so you can really feel it. Then tomorrow morning, we're going to take on scroll 2. This is one of my favorites, and you have to live this one to understand it, because all the extra was taken out by Betty's request. It's just the substance. Well, thank you all for joining us. It is such an honor in the Og Mandino Group to have the responsibility of bringing Og's words into the 21st century. Consume them. They are timeless. Let them bless your life. And if between now and tomorrow morning you'd like to know where your habits of thinking are that are driving this behavior, go to habitfinder.com. It's Og Mandino's habitfinder.com. That's what he's telling us. Find out your habits. I'm going to teach you the principles, he says, to overcome them. We now can measure them so you know what work to do. What 100-headed monsters do you need to cut off and replace with a good habit? So go to habitfinder.com. It's free. You get the whole report. There's no strings attached. No, put in 1995 to get the rest of it. You get the whole thing. We want you to have the whole thing. And then go to ogmandino.com and download the 10 scrolls so you've got those audio tracks to listen to. Well, thanks, everyone. I wish I had time to do this and read all of these messages. Thank you for all your great comments. And we'll see you at 7:45 Mountain Standard Time tomorrow morning. Read that scroll 2. Get your habit finder taken. And let's change your life. Today, I'm going to begin a new life. Let's begin a new life. Thanks, everyone.